last Sunday in America, there were 100 million people in church. Actually, phone surveys discovered that about 140 million people had planned to go, but things can get sideways in a house on Sunday morning. Not everyone made it, but still, 100 million people. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest single demonstration in American history was in 2017. It was the Women's March in towns all across America and marching for a good purpose. What a demonstration for women's rights. There were 5.2 million people that took part. If we were to consider going to church to be an act of demonstration, every Sunday would be the single largest demonstration in history. I think we should. Going to church is a demonstration, trying to demonstrate that you're seeking the good things in life, trying to demonstrate for love and peace and hope and justice. It's an incredible demonstration. Every Sunday across America, think about this. Millions upon millions of people demonstrate for what is good, striving for the most meaningful things in life, hoping that every human being will flourish. What a demonstration, coming to church. Even on a normal Sunday. The Sunday after Easter is one of the lowest church Sundays of the year, but still there'll be 60 million or so in church today in largest demonstration ever. Thank you for demonstrating today. Oh, I think we miss the scale of these things. Do you know that for an entire season in the NFL, the total attendance in all the stadiums is 19 million? But there were 100 million gathered in churches. We forget the scale. For a whole year, if you added up every person that went to a musical concert, all those big pop concerts and rock concerts and symphonies, you added everything up, it would be 70 million for the year. This Sunday, there's as many in church. Oh, we forget the scale. What an awesome demonstration. So all year long, if you added up the Husker attendance at Memorial Stadium, all year long at the home games, it's about 595,000 people. That's for the whole year. Think of the size of this demonstration. You know, we say that when we fill up Memorial Stadium, it becomes the third largest city in Nebraska, right? Some 85,000 or so. It becomes the third largest city. But that Sunday in Lincoln, every Sunday in Lincoln, over 100,000 people gather in churches right here in Lincoln. The church has become the third largest city in Lincoln, not the stadium. We like to say that Husker football is a religion. Sort of is. But really, religion is the religion. Far more people demonstrate this way. How awesome. Now, in the week after Easter, we always turn to the text of doubting Thomas. Right after Jesus has risen, we go right to this moment of doubt. I think it's a little unfair we malign him with a nickname like that because it looks sensible. He didn't get to see the risen Christ yet. He just said, I'm not going to believe until I see. The other disciples didn't believe until they saw either, frankly. And so but now he sees Jesus. And it's Thomas then that pronounces the highest declaration of faith in our whole gospel. Did you see? It's in your hand. When he sees the risen Christ, he says, my Lord, my God. That's the highest acclamation of faith by any of the disciples. Do you know, in the early church, in early Christianity, Thomas was considered the foremost apostle. Partly because of this declaration of faith, but also let me tell you about Thomas. In the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, he's listed as one of the 12 disciples, but he never speaks. But in the Gospel of John, he speaks 3 times. 3 amazing moments. First, right after Lazarus was risen from the dead, Jesus says to the disciples, let's now go to Judea. But the other disciples say, no, people are trying to kill you, Jesus. It's too dangerous to go there. And then Thomas says, let us go and die with him. Whoa. A willingness to die for a friend. What a disciple he is. Let us go and die with him. One of the great theologians of the church says that is the central call of the gospel. The gospel bids to us, come and die. Not die literally, meaning die to your old self. Be born anew. Die to your little versions of life and be born into a bigger understanding of life. Die to your anxieties and your lack of possibility. Die to that. Be born to what life can be really about. The gospel bids us, come and die to that. I tried to convince our communications team that would be a good marketing slogan for First-Plymouth. To put on the front page of our website, come to First-Plymouth and die. They wouldn't go for it. But my friends, we have done that this morning. The gospel bids us, come and die. Die to what is limiting the possibilities in your life. Die to what is keeping you disconnected from your brothers and sisters and disconnected from God. Die to that. Be born into something new this morning. The early church had these understandings of Thomas, so much so that we just discovered there was a Gospel of Thomas written. In 1945, we discovered this gospel. Some early Christian community thought that Thomas was the primary apostle, and they had a Gospel of Thomas. Now, in their understanding, Thomas was Jesus' twin. Notice in even our Gospel of John, it says that he was called the twin. Thomas in the Greek, he's called Didymus, which means twin. So the early Christians actually thought he was a twin of Jesus, so filled with the Spirit. The second time Thomas talks in the Gospel of John is Thomas, even how amazing he is, he's confused. He's in this moment of not knowing the way. You've had one of those moments in your life where you don't really know what your way is, and he's in a state of panic, and he says to Jesus, how can I know the way? And Jesus, in this beautiful act of pastoral care, leans in and says, look at me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's a beautiful moment. But actually, oddly enough, we take that moment, some Christians take that moment to make the claim that Christianity is the only true religion. Because Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And so some Christians think that shows Christianity is superior. And so often in this pulpit, when I talk about how much I love the Jewish faith or Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism, and that even though Jesus is my Lord, but I believe you can be a true disciple of Jesus Christ, but Jesus is my way, but those other religions have beautiful other ways. Whenever I say that, I get emails all week long from people saying, Jesus said, no one comes to him but through no one comes to the Father but through him. So Christianity is the one true superior religion. And then I email back, the passage isn't talking about religion at all. Where do you see Christianity mentioned? He's not talking about religion at all. If he was talking about religion, he's Jewish. It would mean Judaism is the only way to God. He's not talking about religion. He's talking about a way of love. It's not about organized religion. No one gets to God except through love. And then the next time Thomas talks is here in the passage today. And then he comes to that fullest expression of faith. But notice he doubted. Now, some of us might imagine that doubt is the opposite of faith. But our text is telling us today, doubt is the way to full faith. Isn't this interesting? That somehow Thomas, through his doubts, came to a higher level. As Kierkegaard once said, doubts are our way of taking a step back so you can jump even further forward into faith. Oh, I think this text is clearly trying to teach us. It might be your doubts that lead you to a fuller expression of hope and faith. So, I want to speak for a few moments in praise of doubt. I think it might be your doubts that, number one, your doubts can be at times a moral stance. You should doubt some things that some Christians say. You should doubt them as a moral stance. And then secondly, I think our doubts can be a way that we resist authoritarianism or tyranny or ideology. And I think it's our doubts, lastly, that animate the quest, get us searching and seeking. And the Christian faith is to be an adventure of seeking to know more, understand more. Let me speak now in praise of doubt. Terry Eagleton is Mr. Smarty Pants. Terry Eagleton is one of those hip Euro literary critics. And because of perhaps his British accent, he can speak with a type of sarcasm that is so deeply condescending. He is a brilliant mind, and he knows it full well. He went to Cambridge, of course, read in English, but when he graduated, from undergrad, he pronounced right away as a young man that college is a waste of time. Seek your own truth. Learn. He made that pronouncement, but then he went on to become the youngest fellow at Cambridge since the 18th century, then went to be a professor at Oxford, of course. He's deeply professorial. But I get a kick out of what he says sometimes. I only agree with about 30% of what he says. But here's a bit that I agree with. He said, listen, he said, the world is divided into two types of people. Just two types. Those who believe too much and those who believe too little. Ooh. Terry Eagleton is a Christian, actually a vigorous defender of Christianity, so he's also talking about Christians here too. The world is divided into two types, people that believe too much and people that believe too little. He goes on to say that fundamentalists don't understand that certainty can kill. Middle-class liberals don't understand that conviction can liberate. Oh. And Mr. Smarty Pants goes on to say, the one thing that can fix this dichotomy is doubt. People that believe too much need to learn to doubt some of what they believe. People that believe too little need to doubt their doubts. Oh, do you hear that? Yeah. Which one are you? According to Terry, you're one of them. You either believe too much and you should doubt some of what you're holding on to so tight, or you don't believe enough and you should doubt your doubts. Okay, I'll ask you to raise your hand when I ask which one. No, I won't. No, I won't. I won't. All the great theologians throughout Christian history have known that doubt is part of the life of faith. Our Bible knows it full well. All the great paragons of faith have moments of doubt in our Bible. Doubt is part of the journey into deeper and deeper faith. The Bible's clear on it. All the theologians said, obviously, faith presupposes doubts, because if faith was certainty, we would call it certainty, but we don't. We call it faith. And there are some things we won't be sure about. Faith is like being in love with someone. If you're fully in love with someone, you still have doubts about how it might go or what things mean. Doubt is part of faith. So let me speak for a few moments about, in praise of doubt. I'm sure you have some doubts. And sometimes those doubts are an important moral stance. You should doubt some things that are proclaimed in the name of Christ. There are some things you should doubt. So, for example, I hear Christians say all the time that the Bible is clear. Women shouldn't be teachers over men. They can quote the verse in First Timothy. You can go look it up. This is what the Bible is clear. And so women can't be ministers or priests. You should doubt that. The Bible's not clear at all. In the early church in Paul's epistles, clearly women are major leaders in the church. You should doubt it. They're going to one text. But throughout all of Scripture, there are female judges and prophetesses and proclaimers and female followers of Jesus and disciples. And you should doubt it as a moral stance. Doubt that claim. The Bible's not clear on that. I hear people say all the time, the Bible is clear. Being gay is a sin. I hear it all the time. I even see people in rooms just take that pronouncement like, well, yeah, the Bible must be clear about that. The Bible's not clear about that at all. You should doubt that claim. There's 7 remote arcane passages that seem to make reference to some sort of sexual behavior, but it's not clear at all what exactly it's talking about. In the Hebrew or Greek, it might mean temple prostitution. It might be some sorts of odd licentious behavior. It's not clear it's talking about sexual orientation at all. In fact, we didn't even define the word homosexuality. That word was coined in the late 1800s. And then we put it over ancient Hebrew and Greek words that it's not clear at all what they mean. When someone says it's clear what the Bible says about being gay, doubt it. Doubt it big time. Doubt can be a moral stance. And doubt can be a way that you show the courage to resist authoritarianism. If someone's trying to tell you what to believe, sometimes doubting that is to take a stand against tyranny. Do you remember? Our church, our denomination, comes from a group of doubters. Do you remember this? King Henry VIII had just formed the Church of England in the 1500s, taken the church back from Rome, formed his own church, but he kept a lot of his own doctrines and church rituals. And there was a group in England that began to doubt that why do we have to believe what the king is telling us to believe? This authoritarian church, and they were called the Puritans. This is where our church and our denomination comes from. Then in the 1500s, as it came to be about 1600, there was a group of us Puritans in Yorkshire, in this little village of Scrooby, and they decided that they doubted all that Henry VIII was saying, and they wanted to seek their religious freedom. And so with their doubts, they moved to Holland. And then it was in 1620 that group decided they have to leave altogether to really be free. It was their doubts propelling them, and they boarded the Mayflower. This is the founding of our denomination. Those Puritans on the Mayflower. That's why it's Mayflower Hall down there and Pilgrim Hall. They landed at Plymouth Rock. That's why it's called Plymouth here at church. That's why there's a stone in our tower from Plymouth. Because this is how we began, doubting what authorities are trying to tell you, doubting tyranny or some ideology. They developed the notion of the freedom of individual conscience, that you don't have to take anything in faith on someone else's word, that you have a conscience. You need to come to your own understanding of God and of Christ. It's not even real faith, they said, if you believe it because someone else made you believe it. You have to claim it for yourself in the freedom of your individual conscience. We were the original doubters, Congregationalists. It propelled us to greater freedom. Use your doubts to resist ideologies to this very day. Don't just go by what other people tell you to believe. And lastly, our doubts animate the search. And faith is an adventure of seeking more knowledge, seeking to come closer to God, seeking. There's this Roman Catholic Church. I love this. In Canada, if you are standing outside this massive cathedral and the doors are open, you see hanging over the chancel from a long distance, you see a big question mark. And the idea of the architect was it should be questions that draw you in. Your doubts and questions are why we come together. But this is amazing. As you walk into that church, by the time you get halfway into the pews, you suddenly notice it's not really a question mark. It's Jesus on the cross. What a beautiful architectural statement. Your questions should draw you in. Then together you can begin to more clearly see the way of love. The church I was a member at as a boy in Columbus, Ohio, it called itself the Church of the Infinite Quest. Searching and seeking and questing and questioning together. Our doubts are what animate that. Oh, I've been speaking in praise of doubt. And I said, following Eagleton, that there are two types of people, but really, those two types of people are probably within each one of us. There is probably some things you're holding on with greater certainty than you should, and you should doubt some of that. And there's probably within you some doubts that are disempowering you, disabling you. You probably have some doubts that are pretty corrosive. You should doubt those doubts. And then together, we will find the way of Christ together.